Gives away, Kohler's got it. He'll follow in. Swatting it away.
Wow. Andrew Hill did a great job of timing that. You look at the replay, there won't be any contact. But he goes up and gets that ball off the top of the backboard.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to ISPN.TV. It's a new week. That means fresh rankings in both 5A boys and 5A girls basketball. Welcome along with Marty Cesario. I'm Brian Roth. Happy to have you aboard for our latest webisode here. And well, let's get right to the top 10s. We start with the boys' side, and still at the top, those Regis Raiders, defending state champs. I don't think anybody's going to disagree with the fact that they are the #1 ranked team in the state. Rampart, they're the only undefeated team left in the state of Colorado at Class 5A. Fountain Fort Carson also out of the Springs. There's Fort Collins, Monty Alcaraz's team. They are off to a great start. And then Montbello, Marty, here this past week, they fell from the ranks to the unbeaten, but I'll tell you what, David Carey still has a very good squad for the Warriors this year.
Yeah, tough squad. I mean, city school, obviously, but they got some thick boys. You know, we're talking about Lamar Cherry, and I love Roderick Taylor. Did take the loss to Highlands Ranch, but beat Rangeview, who has beaten a couple of really decent squads, and also took care of Chatfield, who is within our top 10 here. So we'll have to see what's up this week. They have Gateway, which, you know, got to watch out for them, and also Adams City.
Yeah, and those Regis Raiders, they're going to get a pretty good test coming up later this week against Highlands Ranch, but it's a Regis team that continues to roll through good competition. It's not as if Regis isn't playing anybody good. They are, and they continue to roll. They are the #1 ranked team. All right, 6 through 10 in Class 5A boys. As you take a look at it there, Chaparral, led by Corey Calvert, they have won 10 consecutive games. There's Arapahoe. They're up to 9-2 now on the season as they get into Centennial League play, and Centennial might be a little bit down this year. Perhaps Overland might be able to challenge the Warriors there. Chatfield at 6-3. Talked about their loss earlier this week. There's Palmer. They will get Fountain Fort Carson later this week. And the Falcons of Highlands Ranch coming in at 8-2.
Kind of smelled this was going to happen. Coach Caton, you know, had so much success with Aurora Central and been around forever. You know, he's got Highlands Ranch now, and they're creeping up. They've got victories. You mentioned they're going to take on Regis, so maybe a test for the top team and certainly possible statement game for Highlands Ranch, so we'll have to see what happens with that. You mentioned the Chatfield loss, too. Kind of a wild week for them. Beat Denver East, who was within our top 10, beat them by 20, but then took a loss against Montbello. Chatfield just front-loaded. I think they're probably sensitive to the Jeffco thing with maybe a weaker schedule within that conference, but, you know, they've played 9 games against teams, nobody under 500, and they're 2-2 against the top 10. So we'll have to keep an eye still on the Chargers.
And just love Landon Vermeer of Chatfield. We had a chance to see him a couple of times last year. We'll have Chatfield later on this season against Ralston Valley. Vermeer wages the big kid on the inside. He's going to the School of Mines. It's a Chatfield team that's going to be right in the thick of things in our top 10 throughout the rest of the season. Meanwhile, we showed you that Palmer was in the top 10. We mentioned they're going to get Fountain Fort Carson. It's going to give us a better idea about the Terrors. It'll give us a better idea about Fountain Fort Carson. And don't forget, coming up this week on CET Sports, we will have Highlands Ranch. We'll have them against George Washington. Herb Brown and I'll have the call on that one, so looking forward to that. And then we'll have a Front Range League game coming up later this week. It'll be Loveland taking on Mountain Range. That game comes up on Friday night. And those are two teams off the radar a little bit, but Loveland comes in 8-2, Mountain Range at 8-3. Could they challenge Fort Collins and Fairview in that Front Range League? That's still yet to be determined. Okay, now that's a look at our 5A boys. Let's take a look at the 5A girls. And still at the top, it's the Thunder Ridge Grizzlies. They sit at 9-3. And wait, Thunder Ridge, all they did this week, beat the 4th-ranked team, beat the 7th-ranked team, beat the 5th-ranked team. That was from last week's poll, but they go to 9-3. Highlands Ranch, they hammered Chaparral. That was a game we had here on CET Sports. Meanwhile, Regis, Legacy, and then Chaparral falls to number 5.
Yeah, certainly the Grizzlies deserve to stay up top. I mean, like you said, they just rolled through people at that Regis Holiday tournament with Needles and Riley and Jelniker and the big girl Langus. So, you know, they get to stay up there, and obviously you can see up top, again, it's all about the Continental League. You know, I'm kind of impressed that you put Regis up there at number 3, even though they took a loss. But obviously Markel Dent and Coach, Matisse, even though they're young and experienced, they're playing above what you might have expected this year. So good job, Raiders.
Yeah, and again, the Raiders, they lost to top-ranked Thunder Ridge earlier this week. They were up 5 with 3 minutes to go. Carly Needles, a big 3 late in that game, and the win would go to the Grizzlies 45-42. 6 through 10 in Class 5A girls. There's Monarch. They sit at 6-4. We'll talk about their schedule here in a moment. Heritage at 9-3. They only played once this last week. There's another Front Range team, Fairview at 10-1. Shea Kelly and the Denver East Angels in at 9-5. And Palmer suffered a loss to Sand Creek this past week. It was their first loss of the season. We keep them, though, in the top 10.
Yeah, talk about Monarch. The Coyotes, we know you're good. The record might throw you off just a little bit, but everybody else you're playing pretty good, too. This week, 5-point loss to number 1 Thunder Ridge. They beat Grand Junction Central, who was in our top 10 the previous week.
They beat them by 30, too.
I know, that's nuts. A 1-point loss to number 9 Denver East. And then coming up this week for Alexis Johnson and Monarch, number 5 Chaparral this week, number 8 Fairview, number 4 Legacy. Wow.
So 6-4. They have played a great schedule so far. They continue to play that great schedule. They have an outstanding sophomore class there for Gail Hook and those Monarch Coyotes against state runners-up of a season ago. They're going to be right there in the thick of things, not only this year, but next year and the year after that. We've mentioned the 2 boys games we have coming up later this week, and also I'd like to remind you, we have our opening wrestling duel of the season. We'll be at Mountain Range High School, where they get set to take on their rival, the Legacy Lightning. That comes up later this week as well, so make sure to check the listings on when that match will air. For Marty Cesario, I'm Brian Roth. It's another week of high school basketball. It's in the books. We're looking forward to the next week, and we'll talk to you next Monday right here on ISPN.TV.